Hello everyone, Big Clinky here with an update video just to explain a few things. In short, videos will be on hold for a little while. About 3 weeks, unfortunately, because I am going on an overseas trip and won't be back until the 20th of October. It's a holiday that's been planned for a while, and I have been getting as much of Radiant Dawn recorded as I can in the lead up to it. I wanted to at least get to the end of part 3, which I did, but yeah, so as of uploading this, I should have just uploaded the end of part 3, which I ended on a fairly mean cliffhanger. I've always planned to do that cliffhanger, but I'm so sorry. Don't worry though, that is not where I will be stopping uploads. I have also recorded the intro to part 4, as well as 4 prologue. And originally, I was going to continue to record more and try and get all the way up to 4 Endgame, because I thought that would be a good stopping point, and that I could theoretically get all of the Part 4 chapters before Endgame done before I left. Unfortunately, this didn't plan out for a few reasons. The first was that the last 2 chapters of Part 3 took a lot longer to record than I thought they would. It took me a while to get all the footage that I wanted for 3.13, and 3 Endgame, I fully expect that to take ages, but still, that was basically 1.5 hours of straight recording, and that's not even counting the base parts. And some of the Part 4 chapters before Endgame are pretty long. In particular, 4-5, that chapter's really as long or as short as you want it to be, and I'm probably gonna need to grind there for a bit, so that chapter might take a while. Then there's 4-3, which is a desert chapter, which is also a route map, so that's also going to take a while. Long story short, I probably wouldn't be able to get all the Part 4 chapters recorded without rushing, and here's the thing. I really enjoy this game, and I want to give it the attention I feel it deserves. Having to rush the game this late just wouldn't feel right, so I feel it's better to go for a quality over quantity approach to videos here. The second reason recording further didn't plan out is because I actually pushed myself way harder than I expected to getting the last parts of Part 3 up. And as a result, I actually strained a muscle in my neck from leaning over my microphone so much. That's probably the fault of my setup, but I usually take longer breaks between recording. I basically recorded for 3 straight days, at least 4 straight hours a day, just to go from 3.12 to 3 Endgame. And yeah, turns out that's not exactly a good idea. So my neck is still in a lot of pain right now as of recording this. Ergonomic neck strain apparently takes at least a week to go away. And I'm not exactly in fit condition to record for long periods of time with my neck hurting this much. So, yeah, just as a tip, you can actually injure yourself let's playing, so don't record for 4 hours a day, 3 days in a row without much breaks. I do think I'll at least upload 4 prologue though. Showing the beginning of part 4 is probably fine, as it gives you a good idea of exactly how that part's gonna work. Both in a story and a gameplay sense. We also have a few very significant new characters joining us in 4 prologue, so a few bios to do there. So, I'm really sorry, but there's not going to be much in the way of videos for the next few weeks. I did originally plan to record a different game and have a few buffer videos ready to go during this time I'll be away from Radiant Dawn, but for various reasons which I won't quite go into here, that didn't pan out. This is a game that I plan on recording later, but circumstances forced it to be off the table for the moment, I'll just say. Then I had another idea for a game that I could record as a bit of a buffer while I'm away, and then I got the next train. And this would be a blind playthrough. I really don't want to have my blind experience with a game, especially if I'm doing commentary on it, tainted by being in constant pain while playing it. So, probably not doing that either. However, that might be my next project after I finish Radiant Dawn. I'll need something a little bit shorter after I've done 2 big games back to back, and this seems like the perfect thing to do. This being planned to be a blind playthrough though, I'm not going to say what the game is to avoid risking spoilers, but some of you may have already guessed. Speaking of which, I wanted to take this video to talk about 2 other things. The first is what I plan to do after Radiant Dawn. Having done 2 Fire Emblem games back to back, I want a bit of a break from Fire Emblem after this. I originally had 2 major planned series for right after Radiant Dawn. At the moment though, I'm not quite sure which of them to go with. They both have their pros and cons. The first is Persona Q. This is a game that I have promised a playthrough of. I really want to do a playthrough of because I actually really enjoy this game. It's definitely in the top 3 of my favourite 3DS games, personally. And with a sequel having just been announced, I feel it's the perfect time to do it. I also may have accidentally promised to do a blind run of the sequel. Don't hold me on that, because my first playthrough of Q1 clocked in at over 100 hours, so it might not be the greatest blind run material. I'll think about it for now, let's just say. We'll see how Q1 goes. Fun fact is that I originally planned to do this playthrough during Persona 3. I was going to take it on in chronological order. Once I got to the Typhoon event in Persona 3, I would switch to playing Q, and once Q was entirely over, I would go back to 3. The Fire Emblem Fates blind run happening in the middle of the Persona 3 series anyway pretty much ruined that idea. And in practice, I'm very glad I didn't do that, because I would have had to censor the main character's ultimate personas every time they showed up, which would have required tons of editing. The downside of this is that I haven't recorded a 3DS game in a very long time. The last time I did was Spirit of Justice, I think. I now have a new laptop, but one that can actually run OBS, and a lot of people use that to do split-screen layouts with the 3DS. So I might have to test that out a little bit. This means that if I did choose to do Persona Q next, I might actually do a different mini-project in between Radiant Dawn and Q as a bit of a guinea pig project for recording settings. And again, don't hold me to this, but that might mean that Heirs of Fate is finally happening. It'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It'd give me a way to test recording the 3DS, and it would mean that I can finally cross something that I promised to do years ago off my list. And that people can finally stop asking me about it. It's not that I don't want to do Heirs of Fate, I actually really do. Originally, I was heavily burned out on all the Fates controversy and wanted to stay away from the game for as long as I could. Now, most of that is blown over, and I'm still very eager to do this, and it's not just because I finally want to be able to listen to Matthew Mercer singing. Yes, I've actually avoided listening to that song because I want to get my blind reactions to it. But more because, I don't know, I'm actually kind of eager to play a 3DS Fire Emblem again. That, and it's going to be really funny to go from that right off the heels of Radiant Dawn and have my muscle memory / tactics memory completely screwed up. I'm going to have to learn how pair up works again. This is going to be interesting, probably a train wreck, but it'll certainly be funny. The second idea is a game series that I really want to get started doing on this channel. The downside is, it'd be a really freaking long project. Ever since around this time last year, I've been doing a few tests on this channel of running a game and its sequel as back-to-back playthroughs. I started off small with Colosseum and XD, 2 relatively short games. Now I'm doing Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, 2 much longer games. I'm not actually that burned out with Radiant Dawn at this point. So it seems like I can handle it, and it seems like people are liking the back-to-back nature of these playthroughs. Now, all of this was leading up to a very long JRPG that I really want to do on this channel, but that I'd be forced to play back-to-back with the sequel, because the first game ends on a cliffhanger more trollish than The Empire Strikes Back. I am, of course, talking about The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. The Trails series is one that I really want to get on this channel. It's a series that I feel really deserves more attention, and there aren't many commentated playthroughs of these games out there. So I feel like helping spread the word on this series a bit. The Trails series are JRPGs with great battle systems, ridiculously amazing soundtracks, probably some of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in a game, and that's really saying something, seeing as I've played Xenoblade Chronicles, Fire Emblem, Pokemon. Yeah, you get the idea. And insane amounts of world building. This is a series that will flesh out the economics, military structure, and politics of every region in the world. Every random NPC in each major town has their own name and goes through their own mini storylines as the main plot progresses, 90% of them being completely irrelevant even to side quests. Tiny details of text from one game will end up foreshadowing something 3 games later. Yet despite all this, I don't find the series particularly daunting to get into. It's divided into sub-series that each focus on one of the countries, and each mostly tells a self-contained story, except that apparently Cold Steel 4 is gonna, like, bring in the protagonist from every single game in the series before it, so, but that's kind of the exception. Anyway, I have a pretty decent idea of how I would handle recording these games, and they would be something that I'd be really interested in doing. The downside is, like I said, it would be a very long commitment. Both Cold Steel 1 and 2 are over 100 hours on average, and the second one begins almost immediately where the first one leaves off. Now, I could start with the Sky games instead if I wanted to do shorter projects, because Sky 1 in particular is a much shorter game. But I kind of want to start with Cold Steel, because that was the first game in the series that I played, and so is the one that I have the most personal attachment to, but also it's because I'm not a particularly big fan of the first Sky game. Don't get me wrong, Sky 2 and especially 3 are fantastic, but Sky 1... You know those games that get criticized for having overly long prologues you have to slog through before things get really good? Well, imagine if the overly long prologue was its own game. That's basically Sky 1. Sure, it's necessary to build up to the later games, but I just don't really like Sky 1 as a game in its own right. Whereas Cold Steel 1, despite mostly being set up for the later Cold Steel games, still feels like a complete experience in its own right, rather than just a prologue. Also, I've said this before, but I really like the idea of doing the games on my channel in this order: Cold Steel 1, Cold Steel 2, then going back and doing Sky 1 and 2 as an extended flashback in between Cold Steel 2 and 3. Because while details about the Sky games are not relevant to the first two Cold Steel games, they're definitely important in 3. And I feel like this order would actually create maximum hype for 3. If I did do this, I would probably be recording off of the Steam version. It's the most accessible version of the game to viewers, and not only does it have better graphics, it also adds voice acting to tons of scenes that were unvoiced in the original PS3 version, adding I think over 200 additional lines of voice dialogue. And I really like the voice acting in Cold Steel, especially for the main protagonist, so more lines is always a plus for me. Anyway, that's that done, but one final thing that I want to say, and actually it's a request to the viewers. So, in December this year, it will have been 10 years since I posted my first video. I know a lot of YouTubers are having their 10th anniversaries this year. 2008 was the time when a lot of people joined. And I feel like I should jump on the bandwagon and make a 10 years special video. It's nothing too creative, it's just going to be me going over every series I've done and giving a little bit of behind the scene details that I haven't revealed until now. But I might need your help with something. I'm going to run down all of the series that I plan to cover right now, and anyone in the comments who has watched those series, give suggestions as to favourite moments from those series that I could include in this video. I'd only be using a few brief clips from each series, but it's going to be really fun to do a bit of a community voted highlights reel. So people in the comments, what are some of your favourite moments from these series? My Pokemon Battle Revolution and X and Y Wi-Fi battles, Fire Emblem 4, Advance Wars 2, New Mystery of the Emblem, Heroes of Light and Shadow, Pokemon Black No Experience Run, Pokemon X Blind Run, Alpha Sapphire Challenge Run, Fire Emblem Awakening, Lost Dimension Blind Run, Persona 3 FES Max Social Links, Fire Emblem Fates Blind Run, Birthright, Conquest, and Revelation, Crash Bandicoot 2 100% Run, Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones, Pokemon Colosseum, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Persona 3 FES The Answer, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, and Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. By the time the video goes up, I will have long since finished that series, and that's as far as I'll go. No matter what I do after Radiant Dawn, I won't include that in the overall highlights video. Also, you might notice that I skipped over Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. I don't intend to show any footage from that playthrough, because it's a very story-heavy game, and I don't want to spoil anyone who hasn't played that one. I'll be discussing my thoughts on that project, but I'll do it over a static image. Anyway, I won't need to put that video up until December, so you have plenty of time to suggest highlights until then. I look forward to seeing what you pick, and until then, I will see you when I start uploading again.